Hello everyone, I welcome you to the CEC lecture series. I'm Nupur Chawla, teaching English literature at Maitri College, Delhi University. And today I'm here to discuss with you about this very important essay by a feminist or a women's rights activist, Evelyn Reed. And the essay is titled The Myth of Women's Inferiority. Now, this essay was written in 1954 and as we also discussed in the first part of the lecture, that Evelyn Reed is a American women's rights activist who was active in the 60s and the 70s, but this essay was written in the 50s and brings to us Evelyn Reed's understanding of what is it that is at the heart of, or what is it that frames women's inferiority, so to say, and what is this myth surrounding it, right? So in the first part we looked at that how according to Reed, the basis of this kind of a division between men and women, this kind of a power equation, or this kind of a differential status given to men and women in society, the reason for this is the class society, right? So she goes into the structural aspect of society, which itself is divided, and then further encourages division along the lines of gender as well, right? So that's the first idea that she makes, and we discussed that in the previous lecture. Now we move to a discussion of the second idea that she puts forth in this essay, where she talks about the myth of male superiority. All right. Now she says that making the historical situation as the basis, the problematic claims were made about men and women and their differential status in that sense. Now, what historical situation was made the basis? If you remember, in the previous lecture, we discussed that how different kinds of social setups at different points of time in history, that is chattel slavery, feudalism, capitalism, how these important moments in history have caused divisions, and then these then were made the basis for by a lot of people to justify, so to say, this kind of a difference between men and women. Okay. So that is what Reed is, trying to tell us, that how history and these moments in history are taken to be as as important parameters for us to peg this difference between men and women. So therefore she says, and that's the term that she uses, that the social superiority of men was viewed to be a result of their natural superiority. Now you see, these two terms are of crucial significance over here: social superiority and natural superiority. So what she's trying to say is here is that the superiority of men in society was considered to be a result of the fact that men were naturally superior. So that was an argument that was put forth at various points of time in the class societies, right? So what is this natural superiority that is talked about? So it was believed that how men are physically stronger, they are more so to say capacitated naturally in order to perform various tasks, etc., while women then are supposed to be fragile, they're supposed to be protected by men, they're supposed to therefore perform only a certain kind of activities, right? So therefore so that kind of a social superiority of man that is witnessed at different points of time in history of the class societies, she says, was justified with this kind of a mention that how men are supposed to be naturally superior. Okay, now first Reed identifies this as a argument, and then she goes on to counter this claim. And let's see how does she counter the claim. Now over here it is very important for us to look at this quotation by hers, and she says, women's inferiority is the product of a social system which has produced and fostered innumerable other inequalities, inferiorities, discriminations and degradations, right, unquote. Now we will come to this quotation in just a while again, but let us also look at very particularly this other quotation that one comes across in this essay, where she says, it is not nature but a class society that has robbed women of their right, unquote. So very clearly she kind of takes the bull by the horn, so to say, and she says that there's nothing like a nature or a natural superiority of men. Instead, she says that it's not nature that has made men and women superior or inferior to one another, but it is a conception of class society. It is this kind of a society which has robbed women of their right that actually belongs to them. So there is nothing that nature has done wrong. So while all these claims that men are more capacitated, they are stronger, they have better abilities of handling different things as compared to women, Reid completely disagrees with this. She says that there is nothing like natural superiority or a natural so to say advantage that men have. Instead, this is an idea which is a result of a class society. Now, how is this a result of class society? She goes on to explain in this other quotation that we just now read, and she says that women's inferiority then is actually the product of the social system. It is not the product of biology. Women's inferiority, women are not essentially inferior by means of through their biological difference. No, she says that it's the social system. So there, the women's inferiority in that sense then is a reason, or is the product of the social system, which itself has always encouraged innumerable inequalities, inferiorities, and discriminations, right? And therefore, Reid says that so this kind of a distinction which is put forth between men and women is essentially a product of a flawed social system itself, that is, right? So what do we see? That she seems to be targeting not just inequalities between men and women, but at the same time she's also targeting different other kinds of inequalities. So as if she's trying to say that it's the social system that needs to be rethought, right? That the basis of which system is inequality. Okay, so that's how. So that system is what frames women's inferiority in that sense, and it is not the fact that women are essentially or biologically inferior. Okay, so that is how she inverts the biological so to say logic or rationale given by the patriarchal so to say discourse, and she counters it by giving that kind of a social argument, where she says that the problem is not with biology, problem is not in nature, the problem is in the structure of society. All right, so that is the second important point that she makes, where she therefore talks about the myth of male superiority, right? So it's a myth that she says. It's a myth. So this kind of a superiority of males is a myth that we have constructed on the basis of the society and the kind of society that exists. All right. From here we move to the very important third idea where that she discusses in her essay, and that is the problematic of motherhood. Okay, so after discussing the aspect of social superiority and natural superiority, she moves to discussing about the problematic of motherhood. All right, now what is this problematic? she discusses this at length. Now, all of us would have understood, would have also known that how motherhood is very, very commonly cited whenever we talk about women's position. So, what she says is that, in societies, motherhood is seen to be limiting women's potential. Okay, so what she says is that a class society then robbed women of participating in what she calls as the higher functions of society, and placed the primary emphasis on motherhood. So she says that in a class society, women were not, or they were kept out of, as she calls, the higher functions of society. Now, what are these higher functions of society? Basically, this involves the those aspects of society which are, central to its governance, administration, etc. Right? So all those aspects which are associated with the public realm, right, with administration, governance, with the economy, with culture, etc. So she says that all these positions then were, so to say, not available for women to participate in, and instead, for women, what was emphasized was the experience of motherhood. Right. So that is the initial problem that she highlights, that how motherhood then was taken to be as one of the framing, as one and also the only framing, so to say, aspect for a woman's experience. All right. Now, the second thing that she also talks about while discussing this problematic is that she says that how motherhood is framed as being mystical. Now, what do we mean by mystical? Mystical means that it has a sense of some kind of a magic. It has a sense of, fancy, some sense of imagination, as against the material, hard truths of life. So now, how is motherhood made as mystical? Basically, you see, there is this entire idea, this entire romanticism, this entire glorification that is deliberately surrounding the idea of motherhood. That how motherhood is supposed to be this, pure, role played by a woman, and it is a very essential part of her sense of self, and how a mother is a nurturer, a mother experiences certain emotions differently, etc. So what is happening over here? Motherhood is projected as mystical. Okay, now therefore Reid also points out, and she says that to compensate for the inferior status or treatment meted out to women, their position is sanctified as mothers. So it's very important for us to look at this idea that how this mysticism which is surrounding motherhood then is actually society's way to compensate for the other domains of experience that are kept away from women, right? So in order to make women feel happy, in order to give them a sense of purpose, what is it that is, so to say, sanctified? That is the idea of motherhood, as if it is a very, very kind of significant experience, and that is a defining moment for a woman. No doubt. Now, let's not kind of confuse over here. Now, Reid is not against motherhood. But what she is against is this kind of a mysticism, this kind of a sanctification, so to say, of the experience of motherhood, and also the fact that how women's domain of operation then is always limited to this role of hers. All right. So that is the initial problematic. And then she goes on to further elaborate, where she says that, that there is also an emphasis on special instincts, feelings, and the knowledge which is forever beyond the comprehension of men, right? So that is how this mysticism is constructed around the experience of motherhood. They say that how there are these special instincts, particular feelings or emotions, a particular kind of an understanding which only comes to women, and it is completely absent in the case of men. While this may be true, but the problem lies in the fact that how this is overplayed, right? It is overemphasized, and this overemphasis, Reid identifies, is because of the fact that women otherwise are precluded from, or they're excluded from, the other, so to say, higher functions of society, as she calls it, right? Now, over here, it's very important to look at this another very hard-hitting quotation that one comes across in Evelyn Reid's essay, and she says, and I quote, "Sanctity and degradation are merely two sides of the same coin of the social robbery of women under a class society," unquote. Now, over here, in these words, she seems to very beautifully sum up this kind of a sanctification of motherhood. What does she say? It's a very, very sharp rejoinder that one comes across. She says that sanctity and degradation are merely two sides of the same coin. Which means what? She says that this idea of romanticizing motherhood, the idea of sanctity which is associated with motherhood, this is not different from degradation of women. It is synonymous to degrading women. So while on the one hand, it appears to be that women as mothers are being glorified, right? But she says that this is where the problem begins, that they are not supposed to be glorified. In that glorification, actually what they are doing is that they are degrading women. Degrading how? By limiting her to just one domain of operation, as if she's not capable of anything else, right? And that's why she says that these two aspects, that is sanctity and degradation, are merely two sides of the same coin of the social robbery of women under a class society. Now look at the word social robbery of women, right? Now what does this mean? Now what is it that women are robbed of at the social level? They are robbed of their right to participate in other aspects of society. And she says that this is a very, very important a ploy which is used in a class society to frame this kind of a distinction between men and women, and to perpetuate inequality between them. All right, so that's the problematic that she discusses of motherhood. So she is not against the experience, but she is definitely against the fact that how it is manipulated by a class society to frame inequality of men and women, and at the same time to take away from women all those other things also that are her due as a social citizen, right? But which are not given to her because her domain of operation is limited to that of her role as a mother, right? Now from here we move to the fourth important idea that one notices in the essay, that is where she discusses the mother as a producer procreatrix. Now what this term means is something that we are going to talk about in just a while. But moving on, she is from her discussion of motherhood, she then discusses that how this kind of a division between men and women, and because of the class society, is not it has not been an eternal fact, so to say, right? So she is saying that class society is only a few thousand years old. So she goes back, she goes still far back in time, and she tries to probe that what was the condition of women when the society was not a class society, or it was not divided along the lines of class. And that's what takes her to the primitive societies. And there she says that in primitive societies, women were social and cultural leaders. That's the term that she uses, social and cultural leaders. So what is she doing? she is basically trying to highlight that aspect of history when women were actually productive. They were leaders in both social and cultural realms, right? So over here then what is she doing? She is basically again trying to contend with the same idea that how women are not biologically inferior, women are not only have not always been so to say restricted to their role as mothers, but there have been better times, and those quite ironically were the primitive societies. Why primitive? And what is ironic over here? You see, primitive, the moment we look at the word primitive, primitive means something which is not modern, right? Something which is dated, something which is far back in time. But quite ironically then, it is these primitive societies that witnessed or that gave the space for women to express themselves the way they would want, and that also then became spaces for women to realize themselves, right? And they were so to say those setups where one also saw women kind of conduct themselves in the best way possible without being bogged down by any kind of inequality. So primitive societies having such a liberal approach, that is the next point that Evelyn Reed seems to be making. So now she says, and the second very important point while discussing the same idea she makes is, and she says that leadership of women was not founded upon the dispossession of men. A very, very evolved thought. She says that how motherhood was then invested with power and prestige. Okay, so two very important ideas. So you see now today, as she says, in the modern society, women's inferiority is actually founded it is actually founded upon the superiority of men, right? So that becomes the so the fact, like she's trying to say that how in the modern setup men are superior because women are inferior. It's like they have to step onto women, they have to subjugate women in order to establish their superiority. And she contrasts this to the primitive societies. She says in the primitive societies, when women were social and cultural leaders, their leadership was not founded upon the dispossession of men. So it's not that women were ruling men at that time, or women were kind of trying to further any this other dynamic of inequality. No, she says that it, like, men also at that time had equal status in that sense. So but the difference was that women also had that kind of a leadership role, and the other half of her essay actually goes into quite a detail about how she discusses these different aspects of the primitive societies and how they witnessed women in roles of leadership. Okay, now then she talks of the fact that how then motherhood or maternity actually led to an understanding of labor. Okay, so she says that in primitive societies, the distinction was the fact that maternity led to labor, which was the foundation of the first human social system as well. Now, before this, she had talked about the problematic of motherhood, right? Now she's talking about that how maternity or motherhood actually led to the idea of labor, led to the idea of work, like labor as in work. And this then was the founding principle of one of the initial human social systems as well, right? Because motherhood then was considered to be, or was some kind of a labor in that sense, and which then was important for a social setup to come into being. Because for a social setup to come into being, as you also notice in the beginning of the lecture, was that how there are different kinds of producers, and then from there comes in the idea of different social sections as well, right? So she says that how mothers then became chief producers, workers and farmers, leaders in scientific and cultural life. So this she is talking about with respect to the primitive societies, and she says that this fusion still remains in the languages of primitive people, where the term for mother is identical with producer procreatrix. Now, what is she saying? She says that if you look at the language of the primitive societies, this fusion between motherhood and labor, this fusion between the experience of being a mother and being a socially productive individual, the fusion or the mixing of these ideas is still evident when we look at the tenor or the language of the primitive people, right? And therefore from there comes this term that Evelyn Reed says is very important for our understanding of the modern woman, also of our understanding of what it is needed, what kind of an approach is needed towards women even in modern times, that is the producer procreatrix. Now you see that there's a hyphen between the two words, producer hyphen procreatrix, which means what? That a woman's position then is not supposed to be restricted to just as an agent of procreation, right? As an agent of giving birth to the further generations, but at the same time we need to look at her as the producer as well, right? So what she is then actually trying to say is that how women in primitive societies, while being mothers, they were also producers, they were workers, they were farmers, they were leaders in different aspects of scientific and cultural life, right? So these roles, they were coexisting. They were like women were cohabiting these spaces while being mothers as well. And this producer procreatrix continuum, so to say, is something that we need to keep in mind and not limit their potential to just the fact of them being mothers. So that's the point that she's kind of trying to make, that how we need to go beyond the perception of a class society, that women are innately inferior, right? That's what a class society does. It frames women as innately inferior. It frames a kind of a mysticism around motherhood. And she said that we need to go beyond this perception and consider as example the case of primitive societies, where women were socially, biologically and economically productive, right? So it is like Evelyn Reed is reminding us of this very essential aspect of women and this very important approach that we need to rekindle towards our conception of women that seems to have been somewhat blurred in a class society, right? So if we sum up and look at the arguments that she has made in this essay, Evelyn Reed is actually trying to highlight first that how a class society is the basis or is the crux of male domination. Then she goes on to talk about that how different points of history, at different points of history, the social superiority of men was justified with this argument that they are naturally superior. She counters this claim by saying that there is nothing as a natural superiority. It is a myth that is used by the class society to frame women's inferiority. Then she goes on to talk about the idea of motherhood, right? And how then this aspect of nature then is further reinforced by the class society by means of associating this kind of a mysticism to with a woman's role as a mother. So this is the problematic of motherhood that Evelyn Reed talks about, and from there she moves to a more enabling approach to a women's position as mothers, where she says we need to approach it from the point of view of the producer procreatrix. And she gives us the example of the primitive societies, that how back then women were producers while being procreators, and that is the approach that we need to have, and instead of unnecessarily glorifying, romanticizing women's role as mothers. So how then we see that, very wonderfully Evelyn Reed frames the aspect of the fact that that women are socially, biologically, economically productive, and that has to be the crux of our understanding and approach towards women, right? So I would now leave all of you to also look into the other aspects and the further elaborations that Evelyn Reed makes of these 4 crucial arguments in the essay The Myth of Women's Inferiority. Thank you.